Welcome to Authors Revealed. I'm Becky Anderson. We are thrilled to have New York Times best-selling, worldwide best-selling author Paula Hawkins, author of Girl on the Train, with her new novel, Into the Water. You'll absolutely love this one. Paula, welcome back to Anderson's in Naperville.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, a lot has changed since the last time we talked, which was about 2 years ago, and Girl on a Train, I think, had just released, just a little bit before that. So how, with all the success of everything, things have changed for you, haven't they? And I'm just wondering for you, for your life personally, but also as an author, how has it changed with having such a huge blockbuster?
Well, I mean, obviously my work life has been very different to how it was before. I've been a lot busier. This is just completing my third tour in the US since publication of The Girl on the Train. And I've done other things. I've been to Australia and around Europe and whatnot. So that's been something that I've had to learn to cope with as well, in addition to trying to write Into the Water, the book that I've been writing. So that's been a bit of a juggling act. I mean, personally, I don't feel like I'm any different because people never do they? I live in a nicer apartment, but I still see the same people and sort of do the same things.
Yeah. But I'm sure there's so many more interruptions than you had before.
Absolutely. That's been the main thing, that there is a lot of distraction from writing.
And that's pretty annoying, I can imagine.
Well,
sometimes.
I can't complain, really.
Right, sure.
It's a good thing that I think you just have to become more vigilant about setting aside these blocks of time when you're just going to write and do nothing else, and ring fence those and insist that no one touches them.
Yeah, right. Well, congratulations on your new novel, Into the Water. And I'll have to tell you, when I was reading this, I had to keep checking over my shoulder because I read mostly at night.
Yeah.
But it was one of those books. It had that creepy side to it.
Creepy, yeah.
But it really was. It was wonderful, and I loved all the voices. I love books that have multiple voices.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you. Good.
So a great starter review from Booklist. So that's just very cool. So did it scare you when you were writing?
There were moments where I creeped myself out. There was, when I was writing it, sort of in the early stages, I rented a house in the north of England where I've around where I've set this, and I was there by myself for about a month writing, and so there were times when I had to stop in the evening and put on the television and watch something mindless to try and calm myself down.
So where did the seeds for this start to grow? Because this is a really interesting story, because there's a lot of different layers going on. It's a very complex kind of story. But where did it start to grow, the idea for this one?
Well, yeah, as you say, there's lots of different stories, so it didn't all come at once, but the sort of core of it is the relationship between these sisters, Nell and Jules, and that was sort of the thing I was thinking about originally. Was I wanted to write about the sibling relationship and about their memories from childhood and how those have determined the course of their lives and driven them apart. And so it started there, and then I started sort of building this big cast of characters around those two.
Yeah. It's very different, but there are a few similarities to your first novel. But Beckford, this small town, and it's in the north of England, like you said. So you did a little on-site research by living up there. So it's in Northumberland, which is, and I think I read something that, because there's some about witchcraft and what happened to witches in the 17th century in England, but happened in Scotland, but also since you
well, there
you
was
said
some witch hunting in England, and Northumberland is one of the places where it happened. I mean, also in Essex and various places, but it wasn't completely widespread. But yes, I wanted somewhere that it was plausible that they would have this history where women had been, or not just women, but mostly women had been persecuted on the charge that they were guilty of practicing witchcraft.
Right. So this Beckford is basically a character in this book.
It is. I mean, it's fictional for starters. Northumberland is real, but the village, the town itself, I invented because I needed somewhere that I could move the geography around to suit me, and I didn't want to be tied to a real place.
Sure.
So I was inspired by that landscape, but I created a fictional town with this incredibly dark, gothic, creepy history, and this beautiful river that runs through it, which has claimed many lives over the centuries.
Yeah. So tell us about the bend in the river, of this river.
So there's a bend in the river, and it widens out into a pool, which is known locally as the Drowning Pool, and where it is said in the 16-something, a young woman who'd been accused of witchcraft was brought to the water for the ordeal by water, which is what they called it, where they tied you up and put you in the water to see if you would sink or swim. And this woman drowned. And ever since then, all these myths and stories have sort of grown up around this place, and many, many other people have lost their lives in this river around this place.
Yeah.
So.
And you start the story off with this girl from like 1679
Yes.
or something.
Yes.
You start the book off with that. So did you do any research on witch hunts?
Yeah,
and
well, I've
anything
read about witch hunting,
Yeah.
and about this particular thing, which wasn't actually intended to kill you. It was intended to be a test. But there were obviously many occasions in which they didn't pull the women out in time and they drowned.
Right.
It was a lose-lose situation, because if you did happen to swim rather than sink, that meant that you were then a witch, and they'd then take you out and execute you somewhere else.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even if you survive the test,
Then they'd just kill you another
right,
way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Libby, she's the girl you start the book off, and she does appear in the book, but we won't give away too many spoilers here. But I thought that was absolutely fascinating. But I love the part that Mel Abbott, who, and we don't want to give too much away, but we can.
I think we can say
Yeah.
with Nell, because it happens on like
Yeah.
page 3 or something. Nell
Yes,
is one
right.
of the sisters who dies, and she's found in the water
Yeah.
right at the beginning of the book. So her sister has to come back and investigate. But Nell has been obsessed with the history of this place, and she's been working on her own project, a book about all of various women who have died in more or less mysterious circumstances in the river.
Right. So she's an author who's obsessed with finding the stories
Yeah.
and writing about all these different women in this book. So this is over 300 years where
Yeah.
this has been happening, which is
So it seems
interesting.
like there's a lot of bodies, but actually, if you think it's over 300 years, it's not that much.
Not that many. Not that many. It's so interesting that they talk about troublesome women, and they end up in the river, but it's also the misogyny that's happening in this small little town. But also, in a way, it's what happened in Girl on a Train, that people don't believe her, and it's just talking about the way women are treated in society in some ways.
Yeah, I was sort of drawing parallels with, obviously, the ways in which women are silenced and marginalised are very different to the way they were 300 years ago, but they still nevertheless are silenced and marginalised, and older women are ignored even if they might know what they're talking about, and young beautiful women are treated with suspicion, lust and or suspicion. And this woman Nell, who's been writing her book, is sort of has been ruffling lots of feathers, and there are plenty of people who would like, not just men, but plenty of people who would like her to pipe down.
Right, okay.
So I'm looking at all the ways in which, women who are designated troublesome, and all the ways in which they're controlled.
Right. So Lena, who is
Nell's daughter,
Nell's
15-year-old daughter.
Right. And so now Jules has to come back and hasn't been home for what? Years.
For many years,
Many
yes.
years, yeah. And now she has to come back for her niece,
Yes.
who is 15 years old.
Yeah.
Now has lost her mom. She's, her only parent, and previously she had lost her best friend, another teenager. So it's interesting, and I love this part of the book because I've experienced it with my own siblings. Or even my dad talks about his brother and sister, who they could tell a story about another relative, and it was so different. Or their impressions of where they grew up are completely different. One could have this just incredible memory of this wonderful place, but the other thought it was a horrible childhood.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of this story between these siblings and the way you see things.
I think it's something that a lot of people will recognise, that to a greater or lesser degree, though, it might just be a memory of a single incident that one sibling remembers one way and the other a completely different way. But I think it's very disconcerting when you discover that something that you've held as complete truth all your life is suddenly someone else says, oh no, it didn't happen like that at all. I've even had occasions with my parents where they've said, "Oh no, you weren't there that day, but you've just seen a photograph of it," and it's really shocking.
Yeah.
And usually these things are trivial, but what I've done in this book is wonder about what if that thing that you have counted on, that you believe you remember, is not a trivial thing, but something that's fundamental to you and something that's sort of influenced the whole course of your life. What happens if you discover as an adult that it didn't happen how you thought it had?
Right, because it's cemented in your being.
Yes,
because
it's become part of you. So
that's right. That's right. So interesting. And water, which you know, and I when we think of water, we think of the beauty of it. You know, when you want to go to the beach, or you want to go to a riverside, or a canal, or whatever it is, the beauty, you know, how it changes, but also the mystery of water and what you can't see below the surface.
Yeah, water conceals. It's very changeable, and it's also obviously very dangerous. And you know, anyone who's swum in a rough sea or let themselves get a bit too far from the shore will know that feeling of complete panic that you can get when you suddenly realize how powerless you are. So I think for some people it's terrifying, but most of us are drawn to water. I think we like to spend time by water.
And I also too about I think, you know, knowing what's beneath, but also too, I think people look at water as sort of a cleansing type of thing. Of that water can do so much, but yet others are scared to death of it. Yeah.
Well, yes, cleansing, but then it's not always clean.
That's another factor. Yeah. So the feeling of this, feeling so gothic. You know, it kind of reminded me of Shirley Jackson's stories, like The Haunting of the Hill House, or maybe The Turn of the Screw a little bit. But now taking it, you know, looking back at the past, but now so much of that gothic feel.
Yeah. And it is a feeling, it's an atmosphere.
Right.
There is a hint of maybe something supernatural, but we don't actually ever go there. So, you know, it has a ghost story-ish kind of feeling without actually being a ghost story, which is what I love. I like that kind of hairs on the back of your neck standing up.
And I like the fact that you didn't go into that other territory.
No, personally I don't believe in that kind of thing, so it would be a strange direction for me to take. There are certainly characters in the book who do believe in that kind of thing, so... this woman, for example, who claims to be psychic, but...
You know, it's interesting, you know, you talk about memory in this and how people remember things, but it's interesting how memory can seduce you. You know, it can kind of seduce you, but it can also lie to you.
Absolutely, and it's just something on which we're incredibly reliant.
It's just very interesting about that. So many characters in this book. So how many, because I didn't count. How many different characters the story is told from?
How many? Oh gosh, I haven't counted either. I mean, I think there are 11 different perspectives, but that doesn't. But there will be more characters than that. We don't hear from every single person in it. But yes, I did create a big cast of characters, all of whom are connected in various complicated ways because they all live in this little town, and most of whom are keeping secrets for one reason or another. Some of them big secrets, some of them more minor, some of them are keeping them for sort of good reasons, out of loyalty or out of duty, and some for more nefarious reasons. But I wanted the reader to sort of feel like they were in the middle of this place, in the middle of this town, and they could hear all these voices, and they have to judge who they believe and who they don't believe, and whose view of certain events is to be trusted. So yes, there is the sort of chorus of voices that I've created, and you've got to sort of concentrate a bit at the beginning, but then I think hopefully it becomes immersive and you're right in there with them.
So how did you keep them straight and to outline this? And then, because you flip back and forth between the past and then to the future. And
it is tricky, and it needed quite a lot of work to knit everything together. For me, I mean, obviously, because I know them well, these characters in my head, they're easier for me to keep straight. But I had to decide which voices sort of needed to go where, and who was best to tell certain parts of the story. So that it required quite a lot of, you know, it was a delicate piece of work to put together.
Yeah, and a favorite character?
Well, I do like the supposed psychic Nikki Sage, who claims to be able to talk to the dead. But I'm also very fond of Josh Whittaker, who's a young boy. He's 12 and is keeping lots of secrets and trying to protect his parents from bad things and his friends from bad things, and is a wonderful character. And I like to mention him because I'm often accused of being mean to my male, of writing rather unpleasant male characters. And I like to point out that the nicest character in this book is male, even if he is only 12.
That's right. That's right. So this book has a nice punching twist, right?
Yeah.
And we're not going to say anything about it.
Yeah.
But outlining this, do you sit down and outline? You know how it begins, you know how it ends. But does it sort of take you as you're writing it?
Yeah. I don't like to plot everything in between because that would become quite dull. So yeah, I know where I'm going, but I like to let it flow a little on the way there.
Yeah. That's got to be fun for you as a writer.
Oh yeah, that is the fun stuff.
Yeah.
And I think the best writing comes from the spontaneous.
Yeah.
The connections you make while you're in the writing, and the sort of ideas that pop up.
Yeah. So was it difficult for you to follow up with such a huge bestseller with The Girl on the Train, to follow up with another novel, or was it just getting back to work and writing what you love to do?
Well, fortunately, I'd started this before The Girl on the Train was actually published, so I was already writing it. I already knew what I was doing, which I think was a really good thing.
Yeah.
I was committed to my story, to my characters. So it did make it more difficult, and I did have other pressures and voices in my head saying, making you wonder whether you were doing the right thing. But I was already writing it, so I think it was a good idea to get working as fast as I could after finishing The Girl on the Train. And I mean, it has been scrutinized quite carefully, as those kind of second novels are after you've had a big success. So that's always uncomfortable for the writer.
So I hear you like to walk when you need to get back. Yeah. And I've heard other writers, and sometimes they'll walk in small groups or in two, and just like walk the streets, just to help get ideas, because walking somehow gets it back in the flow of getting back to writing.
It is. I mean, it's nice to be able to walk somewhere beautiful, which is what I did when I was staying up in Northumberland. I was walking on the coast a lot, which is wonderful. Most of the time I'm in London, so I just walk. Regent's Canal is quite near my house, so I tend to walk there or go to the park when I need to try and sort through ideas in my head. I do find it is a good way to shake things loose a bit if you find you're stuck.
Sure. So you were a journalist, and I think you were a financial and property type of things for 15 years.
I was, yeah.
So how did that inform your life as a novelist?
Well, I mean, I don't know that it did particularly. I think obviously there are parts of journalism that are very good training for a novelist. You learn to edit yourself. You learn to strip out what's not necessary. You also become quite good at reading people and trying to figure out what people aren't telling you when they give you an answer, which is quite a useful skill for a novelist. But it was a very different kind of writing. I'm not like someone who could draw on a history as a crime reporter or something, because I know lots of crime reporters go into fiction. But for me, the fiction was a blessed escape from financial journalism.
No, because you're such a great descriptive writer, and I can't imagine you use that so much.
No, you don't know. Gosh, it's very, when you're writing about tax and pensions, there's not a lot of scope for lyrical description.
Yeah. So what I've always been amazed at, and seeing so many books that people absolutely love and want to come back to, are so many female writers that write thrillers, mysteries, detective novels, that type of thing, and it's been for generations that way. Why do you think that is, that so many women and men are drawn to this genre written by these women?
It is. I think it is really interesting that it's one of the genres where women have always been respected. They haven't been seen as junior partners. Agatha Christie, Highsmith, P.D. James, people like that, have always been well respected. And I'm not sure I have a great explanation for that, but certainly I think women have a slightly different perspective on crime writing in that, for good reasons or bad, we are often taught from quite a young age to consider ourselves as potential victims of crime. We're often told ways that we should be avoiding becoming a victim in a way that men possibly aren't, even though men are actually more likely to be victims of crime. Women are always told, don't wear high heels, don't wear a short skirt, don't do this, don't do that. You're constantly looking over your shoulder, you carry your keys in your hand. Women are very aware that they are potential targets. And so that I think we perhaps think about crime in a slightly different way and think of it from a very personal way, very much from the point of view of identifying with potential victims.
Yeah. And why do you think women readers, want to read about it?
I think there's an element of sorting through your fears in a safe space, of imagining what you might do in these given situations. I think the sort of crime that I write, and that we've seen, that there's been this sort of resurgence of recently, this sort of what they call domestic noir, is very much rooted in our homes and it's about family, it's about marriage, it's about the places where unfortunately women are most vulnerable, which is in their own homes. So I think it feels very relevant to women today.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I interviewed Sarah Pinborough, who wrote Behind Her Eyes. And that was another one of those types of books where it had that magical realism a little bit at the end. But it was very interesting, you know, dissecting a marriage that what looks like on the outside is maybe not what it is, or relationships like that. So you wrote under a pen name, Amy Silver.
I did.
And you wrote some romantic comedies, and I think you were given maybe an outline, but then
for the first one, I was.
So what was that like, writing those? Because that just doesn't seem...
Doesn't seem like me, does it?
Well, it doesn't seem like what you would like to do, you know.
I did enjoy doing them, but they never felt right. I never felt completely comfortable in that genre because it's not the sort of thing I read, for starters. I mean, I have read some of them, and I know that there are some great people writing in that genre, but it didn't feel like my natural place to be writing. And as I have said many times, as the novels progressed, I wrote 4, they got darker and darker, and more dreadful things happened to all the characters. So by the time I'd written the 4th one, it became clear that I needed to break from that and try something different.
Yeah, I love the fact they got darker and darker.
The last one's not cheerful at all.
So were you happy with the movie?
Yeah, I was. I thought they were faithful to the things about the book that were important, the atmosphere of it, the grittiness of it, sort of claustrophobia and paranoia, and I thought Emily Blunt was wonderful as Rachel, and she really got the self-loathing and the sadness of Rachel. She played that beautifully. So I was very happy. I know that a lot of readers were upset not to see it shot in London. But to me that wasn't the key thing about the story. It was the location, if anything, is the train and the commute rather than London or New York. But I understand why people
and I think she did get, and that was the best thing I loved about that book, was the way she was feeling inside. And that was just, you could feel it. You could sense it. Everything about that was so good. So you grew up in Zimbabwe.
I did, yeah.
Have you ever thought of writing about your childhood or anything that would be...
I have, but it would. I'm not ready to do it. I think it's it's one of those things that I'd be really worried about getting things wrong or offending anyone or what have you. So I need to be at the right point in my career. But yes, I have thought. I've had some ideas about what I might do.
Okay. And anything you're working on now, or you just want to get through this tour?
I've got some ideas, but they're just ideas at the moment. They haven't sort of developed. I've got an idea for a couple of characters, but I'm still not sure what I'm going to do with them.
Okay. All right. Well, please come and see us when that one's out in the world. Okay. Okay. So this is a little quiz. I think we did this last time, but I tried to think of different questions.
Okay.
So it's lightning round. So whatever comes to first. Most are book related. Okay. So this is kind of about you as the writer who loves to read.
Oh, gosh.
Okay. What was your favorite as a child? Pretty young.
Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I still like to get into side wardrobes. That's good. Okay. How about a book when you were a teen that made a difference for you at the time? Do you remember anything that was really influential?
I mean, I was not a highbrow reader. I remember reading Adrian Mole. I don't know if you, but I'm not sure if I can say that made a difference. I loved it.
Okay,
It made me laugh.
Great. Yeah, that's good. Okay, how about something at Oxford? Because you were philosophy. You majored in philosophy.
Yeah. Oh, do you want a non-fiction book?
Anything. Yeah.
Because I hardly read any fiction when I was at university, but the one I do remember is The Secret History.
Oh,
Donna Tartt, which
Donna
was
Tartt,
really opened my eyes to what a thriller could be.
Yeah, that's such a great book. Okay, how about a book you faked reading? Because we've all done it. I don't care who you are.
I'm sure I've told somebody that I read War and Peace at some point, and I haven't. So.
Okay, that's a good choice. Good choice. Okay, when you're reading a book, do you like to dog ear or use a bookmark?
I'm actually an equal opportunities user, but if I have,
You'll have it. You'll use the bookmark. Okay, how about living in the world of a book, an imaginary world? What book would that be? If you don't have to live there, but you can visit.
Oh, God. This is going to sound terrible, but I'm a huge fan of Second World War books, and that wouldn't actually be a fun place to live, but it would be fascinating to visit London and the Blitz.
Sure. Okay, how about a sidekick you would have during the zombie apocalypse? Any fictional character ever?
Not necessarily from novels.
No, it could
I'll
be
have,
a comic.
I'll have Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh, kick ass. Yeah, that's great. Okay. How about a book that, your favorite book ever? Maybe you couldn't tell enough people to read it.
I change my mind about this all the time, but I'll pick A God in Ruins by Kay Atkinson.
Oh, yeah, I love her stuff. If you had a literary dinner,
Yeah.
it was you and 3 other people, these authors could be alive or dead.
Okay.
Who would be those other 3 around a table?
I'll have Nora Ephron, because I think she'd be fun.
That would be fun.
I think Agatha Christie would be really interesting.
Yeah.
And who else shall I have? Virginia Woolf.
Oh.
Well, she wouldn't be dull, would she?
No, she wouldn't. You got to have some good drinks.
Yeah.
Okay. And anything you're reading now or recently that you really enjoy?
I've just started. My name's Lucy Barton. I'm a bit behind on my Elizabeth Strout, so I'm just started it, but it's wonderful.
Yeah.
I've just read the new Dennis Lehane, which is fascinating.
I haven't read that yet. Yeah.
And also Woman Number 17 by Eden Apucky, which is fascinating, witty, dark noir set in LA.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
fantastic.
Yeah, she's great. Okay, 100%.
Okay.
Good score.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you.
And congratulations on Into the Water.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's just a great book. It really puts you in just the right kind of mood.
Oh, great.
Especially
Thank you.
at night. Thanks so
Thanks.
much. Great conversation with Paula Hawkins, New York Times bestselling author of Girl on the Train, with her new novel, Into the Water. You'll never think about water the same. Thanks for joining me on Authors Revealed.